Okay, hello everyone, welcome. This is a live Q&A where we'll be answering some and all of your questions that you have about applying to bring a show to Vault Festival 2022. We'll be answering some questions that have been sent in previously. So if you're joining us, if you're joining us live, you can also pop questions in the comments below and we will pick them up and we'll try and feed them into what we're talking about as well. We'll be live until 1 o'clock today, and after the stream finishes, we'll make this recording live on our Facebook and YouTube channels, which is youtube.com/Vault Festival. So let's introduce ourselves. So Beck, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Beck. I'm the head of programming at Vault Festival.
And I'm Andy. I'm director and co-founder of Vault Festival and Vault Creative Arts. So, what is Vault Festival? Vault Festival is, we have been running since 2012 as a platform for new early and mid-career artists to showcase work in the heart of London. We take place from January to March each year. Last year we were due to host, last year we were due to host 600 different artistic groups, different shows. Obviously last year's festival was impacted by the pandemic. But this year, next year, 2022, we are back and we are looking at, it'll be our 10th anniversary. Our dates are 25th of January through to Sunday, 20th of March. Just a little bit about the applications themselves. So we're open for applications at the moment. Our early bird deadline is just around the corner on the 8th, on 8 p.m. on the 19th of July. And then the final deadline for applications is 8 p.m. on Monday, the 16th of July. Sorry, August. Final deadline, 8 p.m. Monday, 16th of August. We'll be starting to sort of program and read applications from the early bird deadline. So do get your applications in before that deadline if you'd like to be, so we can consider your application sooner and hopefully give you more time to work on your show. So yeah, so the early bird deadline, as a reminder, is coming up on Monday, the 19th of July at 8 o'clock.
Shall I take the applying?
Yeah.
Section.
Absolutely.
So we'll get to some of your questions in just a moment, but for anyone watching who's new to Vault Festival and you haven't applied before, so we've tried to make it as accessible and straightforward as we can. So to apply to Vault Festival, you just head over to our website and click on the Perform With Us tab, or you can visit vaultfestival.com/apply. So we put together a really detailed application guide that tells you everything that you need to know about applying to the festival. So make sure that you do give that a read before getting started on your application, because most of the questions we hope are answered in there. So applications can be in written, audio or video format. They're all submitted to us via a platform called Eventatron, which is an online arts management system. So you need to create an account with Eventatron and fill in the application. We've also got a downloadable application just in case your computer times out while you're putting answers into Eventatron. We highly recommend that you keep a copy of your application somewhere else on your computer. And if you've got any questions that aren't covered in the application guide or that we haven't answered here or won't answer here, we'll be hosting an Ask Us Anything session on Twitter from 12 to 2 p.m. on Monday, the 9th of August, which is a week before the final deadline for applications. And you can also use the hashtag VaultConnect. I can't believe I just did that. That's really lame. To link up with like-minded artists and to put out calls for producers, directors, actors, other creatives, anyone that you might need. So,
fantastic. Yes. Thank you so much, Beck. That was an excellent introduction. Okay, question time. Okay, so we've, as I said, we've got some questions that you guys have sent in previously, and then if you want to add more questions, you can do in the comments below. So, question one, let's start off with a biggie. How is Vault Festival preparing in terms of COVID-19? It's a very good question. So we are hoping to be able to do as full a version of the festival as possible as, within the sort of realms of safety and government guidance. And we are determined to make sure that we are not putting anyone at risk, but also making sure we can deliver something that is artistically and culturally vibrant. So what that means is that we are aiming to do as close to a sort of full program as possible, sort of most similar to what we did in 2020. We are making some revisions and changes to that to sort of help make some improvements across the board. We are currently factoring different scenarios that we may have to encounter. That does include potentially looking at socially distanced seating, does include things like how we operate our bars and how we might operate our lates. And so we're kind of drawing up various different scenarios that we will kind of be making early and proactive decisions on. So we're asking applicants to apply in the application guidance. We've listed what we expect the socially distanced capacities in some venues may reduce to. So that's all in the guidance online and specific capacities. And we will see, we're hoping to sort of make a decision on which version of the festival we're sort of putting forward by late August, early September kind of time. So that's the ballpark of when we want to make the choices. We will make the choices early, and so that everyone knows what we are getting into and what we're aiming for. Yeah, hopefully as full a version as possible, but within the realms of keeping things safe and exciting. So yeah, I think that's everything on that one. It's covered COVID-19, easy.
We've got a question from Grace via Instagram. So, do you need a complete creative team to apply? The answer to that is absolutely not. In fact, I would say it's probably quite rare that applications apply with a full creative team. What I would say would be very useful, because you'll notice on the application guide that there's a place to put who your creative team are and their bios, is put people that you are considering, put people that you might have approached who maybe haven't accepted. If there's more than one option for certain roles, that's absolutely fine. The more detail and information you can give us about the creative team, the better. And it also shows us that you're thinking about the creative team as well, rather than just leaving something blank or saying this person isn't involved yet. But you can absolutely do that for maybe some of the roles. But you definitely don't need a complete creative team to apply.
Absolutely. We've got another question from Instagram from Millie Thorne. So if you apply by the early bird deadline, will you find out sooner if you're in the festival? Yes, in short. So we're going to start reading applications from after the early bird deadline passes on Monday. We're hoping to sort of start to get first offers and things out during August. We are aiming to reply to all applicants by the end of September at the latest. So that is our sort of ambition across the board, and so everyone should hear back at least by that point. Yeah, in short, yes, we're starting the program from the early bird deadline.
Yeah, I would say as a caveat to that, it might not be a yes or a no. It might be, as we start to piece the puzzle together and then applications come in after the final deadline, it might be that we sort of are interested in your application, but holding it depending on other pieces of the puzzle. But you will absolutely hear from us one way or another. We won't kind of be silent. It might be that you're programmed, it might be that you're not programmed, or it might be that we say, we'd really love to fit you into the festival, we're just trying to work this out.
Excellent. Question, Volt has presented, this is from Josh via Facebook, Volt has presented a great digital program over the last 18 months. Will there be a digital program alongside the in real life program? So it's from Josh on Facebook. One of the things we're really interested in at the moment and in the future is the combination of how digital technologies and performance and live performance can combine. So we're kind of calling that a kind of tech live hybrid version. So we're actively looking for shows that have a live element, but that use performance, use technology to enhance performance. It might be Zoom and connecting internationally. It might be the phone lines and text and SMS or WhatsApp, or anything digital that can enhance the sort of live experience and performance. So we're really interested in hearing from applications that tread those line that world. And we won't be doing so much. We won't be doing so much kind of broadcast digital, because we want to focus more on the live element. So if things are sort of pre-recorded, we're less likely to be able to host them as part of this festival. But that's not to say we wouldn't host. We may be looking at doing other things in other parts of the year. But we want Vault to be to return kind of about liveness and about interactivity and then the worlds between those two things. So yeah, particularly looking at those sort of hybrid tech live hybrid shows. What about?
Oh, sorry, I just said, having said that, if there's something that's kind of pre-recorded that then has a hybrid live element to it, like we're not talking necessarily all live streaming or all live performance on the night. If there's if you've got a pre-recorded something that has some kind of IRL live element to it, as Andy said, we'll absolutely look at programming that. I'm sure there's, after the last 18 months, kind of amazing new thinking about digital program that we haven't even begun to think about.
Okay, we've got a question from Fiona via Facebook, which is, what are the variations of financial deals that usually happen? If looking for others to join your team, do people typically expect full payment, or do people usually do profit share side projects? So it's from Fiona on Facebook. That's a slightly tricky one to answer, because it does depend quite a lot on the project and the potential kind of financing that the project might have, and that might be Arts Council grants, it might be grants from other institutions, or it might be privately funded in different ways. So it does depend very much on the sort of finance of the project itself. We do encourage artists to pay wherever they can, and to do, which we appreciate is tricky on fringe budgets. It's an art, not a science in that sense. But we do very much encourage sort of fair pay wherever possible. But there are certainly projects that operate more on a profit share basis, and some that a lot that do offer kind of wages as well. So it is project dependent, and what we will be doing over the next month or two is sort of releasing a draft budget template, to help artists be able to budget their projects and sort of think about how they could approach payment and salaries. But yeah, we haven't got that quite yet, so that's something we're hopefully sort of going to be launching over the next month or so.
Do you want to talk about the financial deals, Andy?
Yeah, so we have our financial deal is tried to be as simple as possible. So we have a what we term a sort of venue costs guarantee. For us to sort of run the festival and for the artists to appear in the festival, there are costs that we need to put forward to make the venues. The venues are all made from scratch, and they exist to host the shows. So we have a sort of minimum cost that we commit to, and we ask the artists also to commit to. So what we do is we take the value of that cost, we divide it by thirds. We then ask the artists to contribute 1/3 of that. We then contribute 2/3 of that, and that kind of covers the cost of making the slot exist, effectively, make the venue exist. We don't ask for that money up front, generally speaking. That's something that we bear the cost of, but it does mean that if the box office income doesn't exceed that venue cost guarantee, it might be that the artist at the end of the festival then owes some money in order to sort of cover cover that minimum cost. So that's a very important thing to understand, because it does mean that if your sales, I think you have to not hit above 20% sales, and if you don't, then you may end up owing some money at the end of the festival. So that's the kind of base level. Then there's a 70-30 split. So the venue cost guarantee is against our split, so we don't take anything until the artist starts to hit their 70%. Once the artist hits 70%, we then will kind of take up to 30% of the rest. But that's kind of how we operate. We try to design the deal to be fair for artists, so they're not paying things up front. We're bearing the costs for artists on their behalf, and we also that also extends to opportunities such as marketing opportunities or tech equipment and those sort of things that you may need to opt into on top. So we try and we bear those costs as well for artists on behalf, and also trying to reward artists fairly for the work that they're doing, and making sure that they are getting as much of the box office as they can. So that's why we sort of offer the 70-30. This year we have an alternative option on the deal as well, the sort of financial relief deal, which is effectively gives the artists 10% discount on the venue cost guarantee. It gives 10% discount on many of the optional artist services such as marketing opportunities and tech equipment and that kind of thing. But then it becomes a 60-40 split instead. So it's a slightly less risk, it's a slightly safer deal. The maths works out that if you're confident, if you're really confident of selling over 45 to 50%, depending on your venue, you're really confident about selling that, then the 70-30 deal is better for you. If you're less confident and you want to play a little bit safer, under sort of 45% sales, then the 60-40, the financial relief deal is better for you. So it's one that you can opt into. So by default, everyone will be on the 70-30 deal. If you want to opt into the financial relief deal, you can, and then you kind of the deal will kind of adapt that way.
All of this financial information is in the application guide, and is really broken down. And as Andy said, that we'll also be releasing template budgets and things like that as well. Okay, so if you're applying with a new play, how finished does your script need to be? And do you accept applications for devised plays which haven't been devised yet, given that the artists have a clear vision and strategy for the devising and rehearsal process? From Esther via Facebook. The answer to that is yes, absolutely. We accept applications for devised plays. We get lots and lots of them. We accept applications for new plays at varying levels of script development, from not having been written at all to finished and having gone through many R&Ds. The key thing there would be a history of your work. So being able to provide kind of supplementary material about the kind of work that you make, links to videos, links to previous scripts, links to reviews, anything like that from previous work, and also your team and how well you're able to articulate the idea. But yeah, we get loads of applications at all stages of the process, and nothing has to be complete. But the more information you can give us, as always, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to add to that, I think especially in relation to the script, like it's really helpful to have scripts attached to it. We won't have the time to read them all, but we ask if you can and you're happy to submit the whole script, because it's really helpful for us to sort of see how the show kind of plots together and how, what the arc might be. We won't have time to read it all, but having the whole thing means that we can get a really good feeling of it.
Yeah. And we always read certain excerpts, like we always will read at least an excerpt of what you provide. It's
a similar sort of thing if you're applying with a musical and you've got a song, like attach it, try and attach as much sort of evidence as you can that sort of communicates to us, like that we, where we can see the quality in your work, and then we can see that, that you have the vision of what you want to create and how you're going to get there.
Great.
Next question then.
How long? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How long do shows generally need to be? I have a 30-minute show. I have a show at 30 minutes at the moment, but we plan to develop to 40-45 minutes of the festival. From Helena via Facebook. Beck, did you want to answer
that? Yes. So our time slots are generally an hour, which means that the ideal show length is sort of between 45 to 55 minutes. There are rare exceptions to that. I would be reluctant, and we would incredibly rarely program a show that was half an hour or less, just in terms of the way that our time slots and our turnovers work. And equally, we would very, very rarely program a show that was an hour or more. 55 minutes is sort of the sweet spot. But if you plan to develop your show into a 40 to 45 minute show for the festival, 45 minutes is absolutely something that we would program. every rule has an exception and there are always caveats to everything, but 99% of our shows would be between that 45 to an hour time slot.
I think the only different, the sort of ones that are sort of sit literally outside the box, and those ones are the kind of either promenade shows or maybe kind of outside of experience shows that kind of take place in the local area or in sort of specific site-specific venues, and they often will be maybe 15-minute shows that are repeated many times, or maybe they're an hour and a half. Like, so those shows that we kind of take a bespoke approach because they are outside of the box of the venue boxes, should we say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next question, do you accept international applications from Toronto in Canada? And if so, how can we apply? From Lara via Facebook. Yes, we do accept international applications. So application process is exactly the same way. What we would flag for international applications is that our audience tends to be quite a friends and family focused audience. So a lot of audiences, the sort of the foundation of a lot of shows audiences are people that they have existing connections with. We're a different kind of market to Edinburgh. Shows don't generally have the sort of run length in order to kind of build up loads and loads and loads of word of mouth, and we also don't have a captive audience like in Edinburgh. People aren't sort of like plummeting into the city to go and see, consume culture for 24 hours a day. We have an audience that is London based predominantly, but with a bit of travel in as well. So I think the main thing to consider from an international application is just how you will get that audience, how you'll reach that audience. So in the application form, specifically, there's sort of questions about marketing strategy. I think there it's just about kind of considering it's going to be a little bit harder if you are an international artist to get that audience, and so just thinking about how you will go about to find that audience and what kind of approaches you could take. I know a lot of shows that we've had in the past. We've had shows from New Zealand, we've had shows from the US, from Canada, from across Europe as well. The ones that have sort of done very better have often had a sort of local contact that they've worked with to sort of help sort of promote it locally. So yeah, so I think I would sort of encourage thoughts along those lines of how you might sort of engage with the local local audiences by kind of finding a local promoter that might be able to work with you on it as well. Absolutely. So just a little reminder of some housekeeping bits. If you're just joining us now, this is a live Q&A where we're answering any and all of your questions that you have about bringing a show to Vault Festival 2022. We've got lots of questions that have been sent in previously, and if you're joining us live, you can also pop questions down below in the comments, and we'll answer them. We'll be alive until about 1 o'clock today, and after the stream finishes, this will be available on Facebook and on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Vault Festival.
One thing I would say just quickly, Andy, about the international applications is, as an organisation, we don't have the facility to sponsor artists as well. So thinking about your own costs and bringing artists over, we're not able to sponsor visas or things like that. So it's just something to bear in mind in your application and in terms of the viability of bringing a team over.
Yep.
So the next question that we have is, would you be open to multiple applications? I have a cabaret solo show I'd like to pitch, along with a different late night show from Chris via Facebook. Yes, absolutely. You can pitch as many shows as you like. It's probably worthwhile saying that it's unlikely that we would program 5 of your solo shows, for example. So if you do have 5 different solo shows, you're very welcome to apply with them all, but we probably wouldn't program them all. If you're involved in a number of different projects, we have artists that are involved in lots of projects across the festival. And yes, please pitch as many shows as you would like.
Excellent. Next question from James via Facebook. Do you have any on your book set builders, etc., or is this something show organisers should be organising? So set prop builders. Yeah, absolutely. So this set and prop builders, set and prop building is responsibility of the shows. We do have lots of freelancers that we've worked with in the past, and also companies and organisations that do set and prop building, so we can recommend people, but ultimately, yeah, every show is responsible for their set and their props. One thing I would say on set and props is that I would encourage shows to be as resourceful as possible, and especially in terms of the feasibility of their set. The turnarounds within the festival are swift, and yeah, I think the venues themselves often they have a lot of character and charisma about them. So I think the shows that work best generally kind of keep their set simple but clever. I think the shows that are designed really well are not trying too hard to compete with the venue, and that they are kind of embracing it and adding like clever bits to sort of keep it simple but effective. So yeah, I sort of design with practicality in mind.
I have a show that has been performed as a work in progress. I can't seem to see a specific place to mention where the script is at on the application. Should I just drop it in somewhere, or presume that you can work it out with the other provided info, i.e. it needs some work, from Millie via Facebook? So I would put that in the format of the show. So there's a place to put the concept, what the show is, and there's a place to put the what the show looks like, the format that it takes. I would put that in the format of the show, let us know that it is a work in progress, and attach your script. And we also do program work in progress shows all the time as well. Yeah, I think that answers that.
Lovely. Do you accept shows that have been performed as a final devised drama school show? We are looking to take our show further, from Charlie via Facebook. Yeah, absolutely. Like there's we take shows from drama schools all the time. So yeah, what we're interested in there is we're interested to know what the platform would do for you in the show, what you'd be looking to get out of it. There's a question in the form about sort of why Vault Festival, what are you looking to get out of it, that the show, what development can the platform give to you or the show. And also kind of just considering things about marketing strategy and how you sort of find the audience, especially if in the case that you've already had a run in London, how you might kind of find an audience and sort of, you haven't kind of cannibalized your audience already. So that's sort of the particular sort of things to think about. But yeah, absolutely no reason why we wouldn't. And yeah, encourage.
Absolutely have in the past as well. Yeah. Hello, given your answer about length of shows, is there any chance that a show running at 80 minutes could be considered? From Susanna via Facebook. Yes, it's probably useful to explain the way that our slots work. So we have a number of venues. These are venue-based slots. As Andy said earlier, outside the box and outside the venue slots work a little bit differently. But primarily our slots work in that there are hour-long slots with anywhere between 15 and half an hour turnaround time, depending on the size of the venue, the number of audience members, etc. What that means is that any show longer than an hour would be imposing is the wrong word, but would be drifting into the next slot. So we as a festival would lose a slot and a second audience and another creative team and another show, basically. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we wouldn't program a show that was slightly longer, but it would have to be we would have to be incredibly confident about the sellability of that show, about the team, about how confident we are that show is going to bring the audience that two shows might have gotten, if you see what I'm saying. So depending on the team that you have, depending on the show itself, like I said earlier, there is no set rules and there is an exception to every rule, but it's unlikely. And what I would suggest is just dropping me an email at programming@vaultfestival.com, or you can email me bec@vaultfestival.com to let me know, and I can then tell you sort of for example, if you're pitching a Shakespeare show that runs at 80 minutes, I can pretty much say we're not going to program that because we're primarily a new work festival. But feel free to drop me an email about a longer running show, and I can give you a steer as to whether or not it would be likely that we would program it.
Okay, we've got a question from Alison on Facebook. You mentioned other venues in the area. Where are they listed? So they are listed on vaultfestival.com/venues. So that lists all the venues that we have that we are working with this year. So there's there's capacities in there. There's tech spec links to tech specs, current versions of tech specs that are kind of evolving as we speak. And lots of information about configurations, and also we tried to give a bit of guidance about what shows work well in each venue. That's not to say that they're not hard and fast rules, but just to sort of give an indication of where you might be sort of feeling like pitching your work. So yeah, for vaultfestivals.com/venues, and you can find hopefully as much information as you need there to kind of make your choices about which venue is right for your show.
Brilliant. So how detailed does our marketing strategy need to be? Do you expect a clear timeline with what we will do when? From Seri, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, via Facebook. As detailed as you can possibly make it would be the answer. What we're looking for with the marketing strategy question is how we want to see that the team has thought about a marketing strategy. As Andy mentioned earlier, we're not Edinburgh. We are not a festival where there is an inbuilt audience who have travelled just to see the festival. We're primarily a lot of our shows really pull from a friends and family audience. So we want to see a strategy where you've thought about how to expand that given the context of the festival. It doesn't necessarily need to be as detailed as we'll put out social media posts on this date and we'll talk to this person on this date. But the more information you can give us, the more you can show us that you've considered a lot of the different aspects of your show and its place within the context of the festival, the more confident we can be that your show will sell and the more likely we are to program it.
So yeah, just to sort of follow that, like I think, yeah, the plans that I think appeal most to us are plans where people have considered different approaches, you know, whether that's a combination of social, reaching out to PS swaps with people, targeting specific networks and communities, like just sort of thinking about different strategies. And not just, but also they also need to be realistic, not just sort of like, oh, I'm going to do every single thing, but about kind of being, okay, this is my target audience, this is how I'm going to reach them, and just sort of making sure we can sort of see that the logic of how it would work and why it would work. I mean, marketing is a dark art, but yeah, we just want to sort of see and understand that you can see your audience, and then you know how to reach them as well.
Just a little note, so our behind the scenes wizard Josh is putting any links that we mention in the comments so that they're signposted, so emails and any sort of guidance to the venues page or the application guide or things like that. So hopefully they will all be in the comments, which are somewhere around. Okay. How do international artists apply? Sorry, Andy, I just took over. How do international artists apply? Do we need a visa from UK, from Lara via Facebook? We sort of touched on this in the question slightly earlier, international applications. We accept international applications. The visas that you require will be really dependent on what country you're coming from. So it's sort of difficult to know whether or not you would need a visa. The likelihood, particularly as we are now post-Brexit, is yes. The answer to European countries would have been no, but I believe is now yes, but in negotiation. But the answer, so the international artists question was answered a little bit earlier if you've just logged on, so you will be able to see that answer in the replay of this Q&A.
Very good. So there's a question here. If I'm involved as a producer for multiple projects, does that put any of them at a disadvantage? No, it's very common for people to be attached to different shows. I think sort of Beck touched on this a little bit earlier, like in terms of the team that you're putting forward for each show, it's really helpful for us to know whether they are hypothetical, like, you know, dream team, whether they're people that you're in conversation with already, whether they are confirmed, you know, just so we can kind of get a sense of like where you are at with the project. But yeah, absolutely, we get applications from the same applications from artists or producers. Sorry, not same. So we get different applications from the same artists or producers every year, and we look at each application on their merit, on its own merit, and we will take a slight cumulative approach just for the mental health of the artists, in terms of we don't want to overburden particular artists. If we know that they're attached to 6 different shows that we want to program, we will try and consider that so that we're not burning people out. But that, you know, when we get to that level, we're at a very nuanced level of understanding of the program. So on a principle, absolutely nothing to stop you applying for multiple projects. It doesn't put any of them at disadvantage by doing so.
So do you do deals with artists where they can have bespoke discount codes to sell cheaper tickets to certain groups? For example, 20% discount to members of their wider theatre community, or to a community or educational group, etc., from Esther via Facebook. The answer to that is yes, with caveats. So maybe Andy, you can speak to the caveats a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do discount codes, promo codes. We can set those up. Madison, who is our sales development manager, is a whiz in that department. What we do encourage people is kind of, as you said in the question, where we encourage promo codes to be used proactively and sort of used as a strategic way of selling tickets, rather than as a reactive, oh no, I'm not selling tickets, can I discount them? So we encourage artists to think about how they might use a promo code to attract an audience, a target audience that they think might be interested, but they may not, you know, but the discount would kind of help them, you know, would make it a little bit more appealing. We try and discourage people using discount codes for sort of friends and family, because those are the ones that would normally be booking anyway, or should be booking anyway. So try and get them to book at full price, and try and use the discount codes proactively to sort of reach target audience demographics, or people that you kind of think would be interested, but may, you know, that just need a little bit more persuasion.
What is the best financial advice you can give to people applying? I think probably we'll both take aspects of this one. So the best advice that we can give is make sure that you know what you're getting into, that the size of your team will increase costs, the size of your show will increase costs, and just being aware of that. We offer the absolute best deal that we can, but making theatre is always risky. I think while I formulate this thought, Andy, I might hand over to you, because I have a thought that I want to formulate.
Absolutely. It's I think my advice would be to get advice, and to sort of speak to people either who have done shows at the festival before, or people who have experience in producing fringe shows. If you haven't put together a budget before, it's to sort of just get help and get some advice on it. That's we sort of touched earlier why we've kind of put together this sort of mock, you know, a template budget for people to use. We try and keep costs, you know, we keep costs to a minimum anyway, and we try and, like we sort of touched on earlier, sort of bear those costs. If artists want to sign up for optional things on top of their deal, then we kind of bear those costs upfront as well. So I think it's about getting advice, and also if you are new to producing, just thinking about income streams outside of ticket sales. The obvious one is then Arts Council and funds and trusts and grants. You know, there's some big changes that have been happening to grants for the arts, project grants this year. That does include, I think, a longer turnaround time. I think it's gone up to 10 weeks, I believe. So that just means that there's sort of a longer period for waiting to hear back on applications, but also thinking outside of that, those 2 boxes of ticket sales and income, like where else can you get income streams to sort of help underwrite the risk of it, because doing live performances is risky, doing festivals is risky. Every part of the arts industry is at risk at all times. Right? So just thinking about sort of diverse income streams and what other aspects you could look to just sort of underpin the finances of it, especially if it's something that you're sort of self-financing, so that you're not personally at risk for it, as well as creatively at risk of it. So I think that could be to do with Kickstarter campaigns. It could be to do with donors and sort of high net worth people who might be interested in supporting you philanthropically. But just sort of having a little bit of a thought about, or a quite big thought about that, how to approach the income so that you're not personally at risk for everything, or you can also then sort of underpin your kind of finances that way.
What I would also say is managing your expectations as well. Nobody makes theatre to get rich. I mean, nobody that I know makes theatre to get rich. But I think part of managing your expectations is valuing your own work. I think what we see a lot of is in people wanting to be accessible in terms of their ticket pricing, they undervalue the amount of work that it's taken to put their show on. So you absolutely want people to come and see the show, and you want to make it as accessible as possible. Therefore, you're selling £3, £4, £5 tickets. And what I would advise is to value your work, that we will make as many possibilities for accessible ticket pricing as possible. But I also think that it is important that your ticket prices reflect the work that you've put in as well, and that it isn't necessarily unreasonable to charge £10, £15 for a piece of theatre that you've worked really, really hard on. And particularly if you're working on a profit share or cooperative model, and you do want your artists to walk away with something, valuing the work that you've made in your ticket pricing, I think, is quite important as well.
Absolutely. The other thing I would say on all of this is, in the application guide, there's a link to a seater where you can try different venues. You can see how that impacts, and sort of different. You can there's a drop down to select different venues. There's a drop down to select different ticket prices. You can sort of see what that means for your income. You can see what that means for the venue cost guarantee. And you could sort of, it gives you a sense of what a run at the festival might look like in terms of box office revenue. And then it's just sort of about how does that then sit alongside your other income streams, whether that's funding or private donors or philanthropy, or whichever route. So yeah, that's available in the guide on vaultfestival.com/apply. Yeah, we could talk about finances for a long time, but I think let's move on.
Yeah.
So there's a similar question. I think we sort of probably have just touched on this mostly, which is about applying to perform a promenade show. How does the show get funded / paid? I think we sort of, that's from Sam on Facebook. It's kind of, as we're just sort of saying, obviously there's the aspect of box office income, but also to sort of think about other revenues and other income streams. We get a lot of requests from artists who are programmed with us to write letters of endorsement and things for applications, and we're happy to do that once shows are programmed, to kind of help with funding stuff. Lots of shows that do come to the festival have been Arts Council funded in the past, so there certainly is a history there of the Arts Council sort of seeing Vault Festival as a viable and a useful development platform for lots of artists. I'd say it's worth thinking about in your application, if you are doing a Arts Council application, is just how the run of the festival sort of fits in with your wider and larger plans. I'm not quite sure whether the Arts Council, with their kind of shift in strategy in the last few months or year, whether they would fund the show that was only going to Vault Festival and not then sort of going on with further development plans. So it's just worth thinking about how it fits in, how your outreach or how your other aspects of your kind of project grant kind of fits in, and how the Vault Festival run might kind of sit in with that.
If our production speaks about a topical issue, would it be acceptable for Vault would it be acceptable to Vault for there to be a bucket donation, a portion of ticket sales to be donated to a related charity, or is it better for the artist to do that independently post-settlement? That's from Fiona via Facebook. Yes, absolutely. We've had loads of shows do that. You're very welcome to have a bucket donation. It's just something that you need to let us know is happening, which will be in, so if your show is accepted, all of that information and who to contact about that is in the information pack. In terms of a portion of ticket sales, yes, absolutely. We would likely just settle with you, and then you would donate that portion of ticket sales to the related charity that you're raising money for.
Okay, so next question is from Susie via Facebook. If we had a creative team for past R&D, but they might not all be involved for the full iteration we would like to bring to the festival, should we still include everyone in the application who has been involved in a major way, aka a dramaturg, sound designer? Yeah, absolutely. It's really helpful to understand the past as well as the future of the show. I think in the application form we have sort of space to kind of highlight three key members of the team that you want to sort of flesh out. But above that, the question before that is sort of a list of people who have been involved or who are involved. So I'd say in the kind of fleshing out, the space where you've got the gaps to sort of give the biographies of the people involved. I'd mainly focus more on the people who are going to be taking the show forward. But in the space above where you can, you've got the list, you can sort of throw in people who have been involved before, or and maybe why, sorry, not why, but the fact that they're not currently sort of going to be moving forward. So yeah, absolutely, it won't do any harm, and it's useful for us to understand the arc of the piece and who's been involved from the beginning through to the end.
I would say in general for all of these, what to include in the application, err on the side of more information rather than less. The more information that we have, the more we can properly read your application and take it on board, and give it its due consideration.
And I think with that in mind as well, like the application form the applications don't need to be in flowing prose. Like bullet points are also fine. Like it doesn't need to be kind of a perfectly written essay. Especially in things like files, the things where like actually sometimes just writing a list is much clearer for us than it is to sort of trying to unpick, like, okay, trying to sort of decipher a kind of paragraph of prose around stuff. Yeah. So yeah, don't be scared to sort of just bullet point stuff, and it also means that you spend less time worrying about how things sound.
Yeah, it's not a writing exercise. You're pitching us, I mean, possibly the concept of the show, and if you're the writer, you might consider writing the concept nicely, but it's absolutely not an exercise in trying to impress us with your amazing flowery prose.
So next question, how many nights does each show usually run for? And if we get funding from other sources to cover performance fees, can these funders be listed in the show's promotion material? Yes, I'll answer, that's from Alison on Facebook. I'll answer the second bit, and then Beck, maybe if you want to answer the first bit. Yes, absolutely. We can list funders, sponsors on the website. There's space within the marketing form once shows are programmed where people can be, where we can sort of list logos of supporters and that sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely.
In terms of how many nights does the show usually run for, it really depends on the show. So in the comedy strand of our programming, it would be very we would have sort of 2-3 night runs, sometimes week-long runs, but not very many, and a lot of kind of one night runs in our comedy strand. In terms of theatre, the default is a week, which is sort of 6 to 8 shows, but we also do split weeks, 3 shows for these days, 4 shows for these days. We do shows that are every Friday night for the whole festival, for example. It really depends on the needs of your show and the availability of your team and the big puzzle that is programming the festival, really. You can put preferences for the kind of run that you'd like, as well as the particular dates that you'd like. If you're not available in the first half of the festival, you just put that in your application. And Sometimes you'll be offered something that isn't your preference. We might read an application and think, oh, they've only asked for 2 nights, but we think this show could really sell in the festival. We'd like to offer a week, or vice versa. Maybe this show isn't at a particular level that we think would run for a week, but we could offer it 3 nights in a certain venue. It's rare that we would offer more than a week. We'd have to be very, very confident about this. The sellability. I keep using that word. I don't think it's right. The whatever that word is, sellability of a show, because it also puts a lot of pressure on that show in terms of the whole program to do really well if it's taking up quite a long period of time at the festival.
Next one is from Cherry via Facebook. Can we apply to Arts Council funding project grants for a show at Vault? I didn't think we could. Amazing if we can. Yes. Yes, so lots of shows that have been at Vault before have had funding from the Arts Council. As I say, the Arts Council have, since we last did the festival, so 2020, the Arts Council have released their new 10-year strategy called Let's Create. If you haven't read it yet, I would encourage you to at least sort of try and read the summary of it, because it kind of highlights what they're looking to fund moving forward. So I think that, as a starting point, have a read of that if you haven't. If you have, yes, absolutely. I think I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but just thinking about how the run at Vault fits in with your other plans for the show and where it might be either coming or going from and to. So, is your run at Vault a development for then touring on in the future, or is it, are you looking at doing a tour and then sort of finishing at Vault, or is Vault part of a bigger tour? Just thinking about how Vault sort of fits in with the development of the piece and the development of your artistic journey with it, and so we can so the Arts Council can understand how a run in central London sort of fits in with their ambitions as well.
Yeah, what I would say the big Arts Council focus is in their Let's Create strategy is community engagement, participation, embedded strategies for engagement of non-theatre audiences. So if you are telling us that in your application that you intend to apply for Arts Council funding, it might be useful to include any kind of community engagement strategies or things like that. Or yeah, just to have thought about kind of community engagement, whether or not that is a tour or whether or not that's educational workshops outside of Vault, or it could be, a million different things, but that is a big Arts Council focus.
Is it practical to bring a show if you don't have an existing audience/support network in London? From Amy on Instagram. Yeah, so we touched this a little bit earlier as well, but just to sort of look at it from this angle, it certainly can be practical. It is a little bit more challenging, and I think we need to want to be as upfront as possible about that. We have had lots of shows from outside London that have had very successful runs and have found an audience in London. But they do need to work a little bit harder. I mean, every show involved needs to work harder. Every show in London, every show in anyway. But because of that sort of lack of an immediate, I call it sort of the foundation, the first 20 seats for performance, you have to work a bit harder to get those bums on seats without that kind of existing audience. So again, it's just sort of about thinking about strategy, about thinking about what is Vault Festival for you, and as an artist, how could it be useful for you in growing that London audience, but then how you can reach them, and also what a successful run would look like for you, because we also have shows that come out from that come from outside London where success isn't necessarily selling lots of tickets. It's about making connections and networks and arts industry approaches, and there's many different versions of what success means to people at a run with Vault. So audience bums on seats isn't necessarily the only measure of that. So it's just thinking about how you might be able to get bums on seats, but also what a successful run would be, and how you might be able to work strategies to make it as successful as possible for what you want to get out of it as well.
From Grant via Instagram, I'm a playwright and would like to apply. Will Vault Festival produce my show? The answer to that, Grant, is no. We won't produce your show, unfortunately. We're in the business of putting on a festival, not of producing the shows, and we just don't have the capacity to do that. But we do have an amazing kind of network of artists that have worked with us previously, or people that follow on social media and things like that. So my suggestion would be to tweet, go on Twitter, use the hashtag VaultConnect, say that you're a playwright looking for a director, producer, whoever it is that you're looking for, and then start to connect that way. We've absolutely had playwrights just apply with a play and program them, and they've told us about the team that they intend to gather. But no, unfortunately, we're not able to internally produce your show.
A question from Lee on Instagram. What makes a show a top pick for you at the moment? A good question. Okay, so elephant in the room wise, like we're not interested in programming shows that are about the common shared experience of the pandemic. Everyone knows what that's like. We don't need to know that more. We are interested in if there's shows that are kind of exploring a new angle or a different, a nuanced aspect of the pandemic. Then by all means put that forward. But in terms of sort of shared experience of the pandemic, we feel that could be a little bit too much for us to sort of for audiences to sort of consume at the moment. So but that's kind of a little bit going to. We also kind of veer away from classics adaptations, unless they're sort of radical adaptations. We veer away from the Shakespeares and the Kafkas and things similar like that, just because we are a new work festival. We are kind of interested in new voices and new material and new ideas. So yeah, again, it's sort of like another thing to sort of be conscious of. For me, I'm at the moment, I like to sort of touch on, I'm interested in the kind of blend between digital and tech with a live aspect as well. So very interested in sort of hearing from shows that kind of embody both those worlds. And then finally, for me, again, things that are joyful. I think we could all do with some joy in our lives. So things that are both irreverent and silly, but also have either a bold or an underlying level of like politicalism, something that can be both political but joyful, or something that can be both sentimental but also make you laugh your ass off as well. So I'm interested in the kind of the liminal spaces between those contrasts personally.
Personally, for me, I really like shows that surprise me. I like shows that take me into a world that I don't know at all. We had an amazing show in 2020. Sorry, my dog has joined us. This is Luna. We had an amazing show that took us into the the partition in India that I knew nothing about last year. I personally really like shows like that. That's why we also, programming is not simply down to me and Andy, because we have our tastes, but we also have a team who have their own tastes. There's an exception to every rule, as we've said a few times throughout this, but we program based on a variety of people's tastes, based on the festival itself, and the puzzles based on a variety of things that we think audiences would like, that we can provide opportunities for companies for. Yeah, no hard and fast rules, except probably no Shakespeare.
Can I apply with a show in development, and how likely are you to select that show if there is a difficulty clarifying the concept in words? This is from Julia via Instagram. First of all, yeah, so in the application form, there's a question where you can indicate what stage of the show you're wanting to present. So you can, I think it's either sort of a rehearsed reading, a scratch, or sort of in development, up on its feet kind of show, or a kind of final version. And that's really helpful for us to know what stage you're looking to present. In terms of clarifying the concept, that is a more challenging one, because that is kind of a large part of what we're going to base our instinct and sort of response to your application on. So one of the things I think that is hardest about communicating concepts when you haven't quite got it sort of solidified yourself is communicating it clearly. And I think that's where, we talked a bit about like bullet pointing, trying to kind of just really boil down what is the key ideas, what are the key ideas, what are the key kind of journeys that the audience are going to kind of go on, what are the key topics or themes, but also understanding like how that fits in with the context of the world around us. We get quite a few applications each year that want to start a conversation about mental health, want to start a conversation about something, and it's about understanding that none of us is starting the conversation for the first time. We're all kind of part of a bigger conversation, and it's about how we, how our shows and how our artistic work contributes towards that contribution or takes it in a new direction. And showing, sort of displaying that understanding of the context is really important for us to sort of understand that there's an understanding of the wider context that everything exists within. Beck, did you have any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I would say that if you've got difficulty clarifying the concept in words, my fear would be that you would then have difficulty clarifying the concept on stage. That might not be true, but that would be my worry in an application like that. So what I'd suggest is have other people read the application. Get people that you respect and admire and trust to read your application and say, does this make sense? If you're reading this for the first time, do you get what I'm talking about? Does it come across? And take on that advice. And yeah, you can always email and ask as well. I'm Beck, in case you've just joined. I'm the head of programming. You can email me at beck@vaultfestival.com and ask for advice, and I am here.
Okay, we've just hit 2 minutes past 1, so we've got one more question, which is, how do you have a successful run at Vault? Now, for me, part of this question is a sort of a questionable question, which is what you have to define what success would be for you, and that's a part of what we want to know in the question that's why Vault Festival in the application is, what does a successful run at Vault look like to you? Is it about getting the show a future life and booking a tour out of it? Is it about artist development, and how you're going to develop and hone your skills? Is it about getting a great set of reviews? Is it about making connections with other artists? Like, there's so many ways that you could have a success. You could be successful with a run at Vault Festival that aren't just getting bums on seats. So I think being early on in the process of identifying what you want the outcomes of the run to be, and then kind of making strategies to get there will kind of help you have, just help kind of know what your priorities should be and what you should be sort of focusing on trying to secure. So just sort of thinking about, what's the future life for you? What's the future life for the show? And then therefore, how do you kind of get to those strategies? The other thing I would say is get people there. And I've talked a couple of times so far about that kind of base layer of like audience. If you can get 20 people of your friends and family at every single show, then that just helps. It just helps those, the top up people, the new audiences. It just helps build. So it, shows that Vault do have to work hard, but beg, borrow, and steal those friends and make sure that they're there every, not necessarily every night, but at least they come once, if not twice, and they bring a friend, and they, and try and kind of get that solid foundation of an audience, partly so that you can breathe sleep a little bit easier at night knowing that you've sold some tickets, but also that it just means that we can make the top up audience, the new audience, have a great time as well. Beck, how about you?
Yeah, as a counter, I think all of everything that Andy has just said is absolutely spot on. I'll give a little bit of a counterpoint, which is I see a lot of shows at Vault Festival so concerned with the future life of their show, and have they had this critic in, and have they had this many reviews, and is it like, has a programmer come in to see it, that they miss the experience of Vault Festival. And I think that a successful run at Vault Festival is is having a great time at Vault Festival. And obviously that means being able to feel a little bit financially secure, being able to have a run with a decent size audience. So all of that stuff that Andy said is absolutely true. But while thinking about that future life, don't forget to live in the experience of Vault Festival, because it really is extraordinary, and you meet the most amazing artists, and you go have a drink in the bar with people, non-alcoholic drink if you don't drink, and go and see other shows at the festival, and encourage them to see your shows. I think that makes a really successful run at Vault Festival, is the interaction between the companies. Don't just stick to your week. If you are programmed in week 7, try and see a little bit of stuff that's come before, or vice versa. I think that will really enhance your experience, and then I think it will also enhance your future, the future life of your show, and the future life of you as an artist, because it's such a unique opportunity to make connections with so many different types of artists and workers.
I really love that. Thank you. That's such a nice way to finish. So that's us done. Thank you so much for joining us and for all your wonderful questions. We hope it's been useful. Don't forget, if there's anything we haven't covered today, you can visit vaultfestival.com/apply, where our application guide is. And I think Josh has also been putting links to things we've mentioned below as well. So yeah, vaultfestival.com/apply for everything you need to know about applying for the festival. Also, a little bit of a reminder, we'll be doing an Ask Us Anything session on Twitter from 12 till 2 on Monday, the 9th of August, which is a week before the final deadline. You can use hashtag VaultConnect, to link up with like-minded artists, producers, directors, actors, etc. And don't forget that the early bird deadline is coming up this Monday, 19th of July at 8 p.m. So yeah, applications by the early bird deadline of 8 p.m. Monday 19th of July. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we look forward to reading your applications and seeing you all soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.